topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hello and welcome to the new episode of Mindfulness in Action podcast. My name is Dalida Turkovic, and today I have a special guest, but not live human. My guest is a book, Outsmart Your Pain, Mindfulness and Self-Compassion to Help You Leave Chronic Pain Behind by Christiane Wolf. And maybe you didn't quite see those letters, or maybe you did do if you are here live and on camera. It's actually the inspiration for reflecting on reading this book is my personal journey, but also something that happened recently when I met someone I'm going to call Jane. And also as an announcement for the next episode, where we are going to be talking about the vagus nerve polyvagal theory and a little bit more into technicality of what happens to our nervous system when we are attacked by external or internal conditions that might trigger suffering, but also physical pain. So I met Jane some months ago first, and we really clicked. It felt like a very honest friendship, very nice exchange, and began to contemplate to meet again. And we were exchanging messages, and we set up the time to meet one weekend. And then she had to cancel. She said she had a lot of work. And I said, no problem, let's just schedule for the next time. And a week later, she reaches out again, and we try to set up the next meeting, and we agree when potentially and where we are going to meet, but then she cancels again. And this time she says, I'm not feeling well. After that second time, she actually admitted that she's suffering from fibromyalgia. And I'm not quite sure, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it in English correctly, but I knew it was related to chronic discomfort, chronic pain, and that it's really, really hard to adjust to live with that. So I offered compassion, and she shared a little bit more about that and what it meant for her. And then we began to talk about her health condition over messages. We were still not meeting again. As you may guess, we never met again. Conditions were continuously moving from the desire to meet and from reaching out to connect to canceling, because it was either that there was fever or incredible pain, or just fatigue and exhaustion from episodes that were happening beforehand. And in the end, we enter a phase of silence and no exchange. I simply didn't really know anymore how to relate, and I somehow, without knowing if it was right or not, suggested that reading this book actually helped me deal with my chronic health issue. And although it didn't change how I was, my diagnosis, it really changed the way how I was relating to it. Now, I really don't expect that the same is going to happen for Jane, but I felt like I wanted to do something to let her know that I too have struggled with something, and I'm here, I understand you. So this episode is really for all those who are either discovering that they are having chronic pain, or those who are well into it, or those who are caregivers and supporting people, their dear ones, friends, family members, when as they are going through chronic pain. Because there's I actually couldn't really understand what was going on until I read this book, and it helped me to put into compartments the whole variety that goes with someone that might be dealing with chronic pain, chronic health conditions. So before I was diagnosed, I really didn't even feel pain. I didn't know what was going on. I was experiencing a lot of fatigue, numbness, irritation, discomfort. I was feeling very heavy. I didn't want to move. I was thinking that maybe sitting was wrong, so I created a stand station while I was working, so I was standing a lot. And little did I know that actually all those approaches to my health and adjustments were actually wrong. Eventually, I went to see a doctor, and I was diagnosed with varicose veins. And I thought, like, I have what? I mean, I felt it was such, honestly, a ridiculous thing to have. And where does that come from? Because my mother suffered from it and is still carrying the problems of varicose veins, although she just really got used to it and is not mentioning it as much. But when she was going through the beginning of learning how to live with this condition, I was so annoyed. I didn't want to hear anything about her legs anymore, and I didn't want to hear how much it hurt and what she was going through. It just felt really annoying. Somewhere there I felt like, come on, just find a way to deal with it. It can't be that bad. And of course, when I heard the diagnosis, I met my judgmental self that was, of course, judging my mother. And immediately the inner critic, the inner judge, turned towards me as well and thought, like, this is ridiculous. You must be joking. So until, again, I read this book, I didn't quite understand the chronic pain and what kind of mixture of different states actually it carries. It carries the mental, emotional, physical pain, the condition itself, the need to adjust lifestyle to the new condition. And within all of that, our family members or those who are directly connected with us might or might not understand what we are going through. Often it's really hard to even express because honestly, I didn't know what I was going through, and I really needed to learn through trial and error what was working and what wasn't. So at that time, I was living in Thailand, and the environment actually created this condition, because when I arrived, I just completely opened myself to the heat, to swimming pool, to the sea, to walks on the sun, and I just loved it. And it was always good for 2 months, and then it started to go downhill. Everything started to change. My mood, my capacity to work or lack of. I had to stop to work, and of course started to experience great problems with my partner, who, just like I couldn't understand my mother, couldn't understand me. I don't quite remember, but I think she suggested this book, and eventually when I got it, I was in much rejection. I didn't really think the book was going to help me, but at a certain point, I thought I didn't have anything else, so let me try it. At that time, I was also 15 kilos overweight, over my optimal weight, which was also supporting the condition. And for those who might also know that standing was not okay, the only position, lying, lifting legs up and walking on the sun was not an option. And anyway, I just started to face all these barriers and blocks in how I could adjust myself with new lifestyle. Now, in this process of changing my identity, I can say, the identity of not being resourceful, not being able to work, being in a new environment that I just couldn't understand, the diet, how much water I actually needed because of all the humidity and so on. Emotions and my mental state were so intertwined with the physical pain that was, despite all my practice, I was just not having any capacity to sit and hold all that that was going on. So I remember the story of Buddha, who had his attendant, Ananda, who one day came running to Buddha and said, "Buddha, there is Mara knocking on the door." Now, Mara is the demon of all the suffering, that causes all the suffering, right, in the world. And so Ananda just wanted to really close the door, lock the door, and not let Mara come and meet Buddha. And Buddha said, "Oh, open the door, welcome my friend, let's have a cup of tea." And so Mara came in, they had a cup of tea, and then Mara left through the back door. These stories in Buddhism are so profound when we find the matching experience in our life. And in this instance, Mara was actually carrying the message of pain. And until I was able to befriend the pain, I was just trying to close the door, lock myself in, not let anything to come closer to actually trigger the state, but it was just not possible. So eventually my capacity to meet the pain was actually increasing as I understood that one of the key emotions that was there to begin with was anger. I was angry with myself that I didn't know how to support myself in the new environment. Why did I allow myself to have such a condition to begin with? Was angry with my partner a lot. Why was she not supporting me in the way that I needed? Angry about all other people that I knew loved me but didn't really know what I was struggling with. Angry with pain, angry with my body, angry at my mother. I was so angry that she passed me this condition because it's also through heritage, right? Like it's through our genes that we may be prone to certain chronic pain that we take over from our ancestors or parents. And as I was going through the whole reflection, I came to understand one thing, and this was with the help of a physiotherapist who was also a yogi there, being working locally, and he said, "Oh, you're angry with your mother, and what about if you were grateful? Because now you can really connect with her." And something softened in me when I realized that I could shift my perspective. And seeing pain as the connection and unwinding all those times when I was resentful and angry with her for being so annoying about her pain, suddenly I thought, oh, Mom, I really understand how that was. You, just like me, you were lonely. Just like me, you were suffering. You were feeling a really strange pain, debilitating. Just like me, you didn't know how to find a solution. Just like me, you had to move forward even though you were hurting. And something softened, even as I'm sharing these words right now, there is some sense of sadness. So I realized that actually underneath the anger there were so many other emotions, and one was grief, grieving for that version of myself who was so judgmental towards my mother. I didn't know better at that time, being a teenager or even younger. It started when I was 7 or 8 years old. Also sadness that maybe I was losing the version of my future self, realizing that there was a condition that will stay with me. And somehow there was that sense of, from moving from the victim of poor me, oh, I will never be able to go beyond this, into the space of, well, how amazing, I can actually call my mom and hear how she dealt with it. And we had an absolutely amazing conversation, hearing her strength. She's now 83. And just the encouraging voice and saying, this is what you should do, don't do this, raise your legs, walk a lot, make sure you exercise, don't stop exercising, and so on. So there was the first part that actually this condition brought to me a stronger connection with my mom. And I'm so grateful for that. It was the beginning of a resolve of a quite challenging relationship, actually. The more I was able to actually go into this space and understand where were blocks and how to address them, the better I was at preventing any unnecessary additional pain to come in. Because in addition to the physical pain I was, and all these states that I was experiencing, with emotional and mental pain as well, it was just unbearable. And my life became pain. But as I was dissecting the state, it was really, really precious. And I will just share with you what the book has. I strongly recommend for you to read it. It's not about necessarily chronic pain. I think it's relevant for any kind of pain that comes in, like tooth pain or headaches or menstrual pain, So there's the first part is caring for yourself. So it's really about how do we change the relationship to the story that we tell ourselves about pain. There's a lot to unpack in there. And then offering the self-compassion for it. Then part 2 is called making peace. And in that chapter, it's really about how to end the war with yourself, because this constant pain is here. Don't let it in. Keep it outside. Or, oh, now I can't. I'm not able to really deal with it, and so on. It's just creates this vortex and downward spiral that is very, very hard to get out of. Another part in this chapter is really about the importance of finding the support group and someone who is going to be able to hear what is going on. So my calls with my mom, I had a couple of friends who were really understanding, and I made intention to really connect with them and have time to connect and be heard. Then part 3 is handling big emotions. Now, this is a really, really big chapter on how we numb out, what is the role of anger, what happens with the anger, and also how to free ourselves from the prison of resentment. Resentment festers our state. I mean, I was honestly no longer able to show up for anyone, and I was not able to show up for myself until I began to unpack the emotional state. And bit by bit, I actually learned that within this state, every time when I experienced, first I learned to feel the pain in my leg, the pain where it was coming from, and it was pain coming from just from my right leg, until I kind of like undid this whole mess of self-criticism, judgment, past, future, the story about pain and everything. I was really not aware where it was coming from. I just knew I couldn't think clearly. But when I could open up to pain and feel the pain in my right leg, I began to realize that actually my left leg wasn't hurting. And also my arms were not hurting. So I began to feel more than pain itself. And in a way, the story about the pain began to shrink. It was still there, present every day. I had to do a lot of adjustments, but I felt stronger. I felt much more resourceful to know when it was necessary for me to lie down and lift my legs up, rather than doing it automatically because I knew I should. Right? So I'm going to read a part of the book just in a moment to relate about this, but the other 2 parts are the pain of connecting and disconnecting. So what does it mean to be a caregiver? How to deal with ignorance? How to deal with judgment of others who are dismissive of our pain? It's so hard when we don't know how to explain what we are going through. Eventually, we don't even want to talk about it, but the others are kind of like really confused and not sure what is going on. What does it mean to love someone with chronic pain? And finding your people, so important. And the last chapter, the part 5, is shifting perspective. So it's the part where we are talking about the comparison, my life versus other people's life, giving the meaning to the whole experience and letting it overwhelm. But what if we could find the silver lining? Self-compassion helps a lot here. What does it mean to not try too much, not try too hard, and to stop trying to get better because it's chronic, right? Oh, that is such a difficult message. But here is one part that is somewhere closer to the end of the book. And perhaps it gives an overall picture. It says, having chronic pain is like being in a beautiful garden, but only able to see the one plant that is sickly and not thriving, which causes us to forget about the rest. Even if most of our body is fine, if we have chronic pain, then it commands our attention and can blot out everything else. Mindfulness practice is useful because it trains and directs our attention, allowing us the choice about what we spotlight. Mindfulness has the capacity to zoom in, to examine the details of an experience, or to zoom out and see the whole picture. Left to its own devices, our nervous system will automatically zoom in on the pain, which will make it seem like there is nothing else going on in our body besides it. Let's say your shoulder is hurting. Doesn't that make you feel like all you are is the painful shoulder? Mindfulness training teaches us how to open the lens of awareness so that we become unstuck from the limited world of pain. We check for sensations, pain or no pain, starting with just one other part of the body and eventually including the entire body. How much of your body is actually in pain? 5%? 10%? 30%? In that case, then, 95% or 90% or 70% of the body is pain-free. Rarely is the entire body in pain. How fascinating is that? Rarely is ever the entire body in pain. That is one thing that is, I feel, really requiring a lot of faith, a lot of conviction to stay with that truth that I am not the whole of suffering. Not only I have the capacity to not suffer, even though suffering is there, but even though suffering is there, it's not the whole. There's more to it. And now, in the silver lining of varicose veins, now 2 years later, 3 years later, since I was diagnosed, I lost 15 kilos. I managed to get strength into my legs. I decided not to go back to Thailand. I left Thailand. I removed myself from the environment. And what I would say, I just made some wise decisions based on the level of the condition and the suffering that I was facing. I also met some absolutely amazing people. And even though I still judge myself for not being strong enough, for not being able to go and do much more, that's everlasting inner struggle, I really appreciate varicose veins for showing me that I can find a way, even though there is no complete and total solution to this. Now, I invite you to check in with yourself. Could it be that there is somebody in your life who is having any chronic pain, and maybe they're silent and they're not sharing much because they're feeling misunderstood? How difficult is it for you to hear about the condition that is very repetitive? Could you perhaps read some chapters of the book, or suggest for them to educate themselves in knowing a little bit how to see the big picture. And sometimes it's just really sitting and allowing them just to know that it's hard. Aging is another chronic illness that we all are going to face one way or the other. And only those who are facing the old age know what that means to live with constant pain. Inevitable. We are all going to face it. It's not a dark picture, but something to really celebrate and see. Can we get different relationship with it? Next week, I'm going to be with a guest, Iskra Tabakovic Hasic, sorry. She's the founder of the Balkan Polyvagal Academy, and we are going to be talking more about vagus, the biggest nerve in the body, and how it really responds to external and internal conditions of our mind and body connection. I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm in a way almost opening the invitation for all of you to join us with that episode. And for the end, I would like to share with you a poem by Khalil Gibran on pain. Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. Even as the stone of the fruit must break, that its heart may stand in the sun, so must you know pain. And could you keep your heart in wonder at the daily miracles of your life, your pain would not seem less wondrous than your joy. And you would accept the seasons of your heart, even as you have always accepted the seasons that pass over your fields. Much of your pain is self-chosen. It is the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. If this episode resonates with you, feel free to share with someone who is navigating chronic pain or caregiving. And for now, thank you for listening. Mindfulness in Action. My name is Dalida Turkovic, and see you next time.
All right, we are clear.
We are clear. Thank you,